Episode 19 with Aurelija Murphy, Human versus Human.
This part of the episode is sponsored by SP Developers, the most trusted real estates company in Hyderabad, India. Make an investment on your favorite property now. For more details, call +919676171633.
Dear listeners, welcome to the episode 19 of Human versus Human. I have a very special guest today on the show, that is Aurelija from Lithuania, Europe. So there is so much about Aurelija. The one thing I like in her is she's a yogini, and the love for yoga have brought her all the way to India from Europe long back. And now she is promoting yoga all over the world. She has been to many countries promoting yoga, instructing yoga, and right now she is instructing yoga. She is taking yoga classes. She has set up her yoga studio in Kenya. So let's know more about her in her words. Aurelija, welcome to my show, Human versus Human.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Aurelija, before we get deep into yoga, I want to know why you have chosen yoga and how yoga came into your life.
Yes, I've been doing yoga for the last 25 years. That is when I got to know yoga. But it was a casual knowledge. That time, as a student, I was living in London, studying. And a friend of mine took me to pregnancy yoga. I mean, I was totally premature for me to go to that class. I was just a young girl. So I found it a little bit unclear to me what exactly those ladies are doing. But I understood there was something good for the health of the pregnant mothers. And that was my first meeting with yoga. Later on, I went to live in Uganda, East Africa, where I was working on a project. That time, my fiancé took me to a yoga class led by an Indian guru from India, but living in East Africa. So that Kaushik Roy, that was his name. He was my first yoga teacher, and I started going to the regular classes. However, that was just more like going to a dance class or to a gym. So was not really calling me for exploring that more. The world was so big and there's so many things to do. So I was just taking that as a user rather than going deeper into the knowledge. So that went nice. And at some point in my life, while living in Uganda, I started feeling not so good. I was still young, even not 30, but I was feeling not so good health-wise. Climate, as great as it was, it had a bit of dusty and moldy environment, which really affected my respiratory system. And that time, my fiancé was telling, and I started looking for healing. I started looking the ways of because the doctors diagnosed diseases and they gave drugs and they put a stamp on your profile, like this is who you are now for the rest of your life. And that one I did not like. So I said, let me look for my healing. So that's that. Since we were living in Uganda, which was not so far from the Indian continent, and he told me he was the one to suggest, why don't you just go to India since you want to go now and you're looking for a place to study? Why don't you go to India and look for that healing because the source is just near? So I took a flight to Mumbai. That was in 2003. I took a flight to Mumbai from Nairobi, connecting flight, and landed in the Indian continent. But I didn't go to study yoga. I went to study Ayurveda. I went to Gujarat Ayurveda University in Jamnagar, and that is where I enrolled as an international student into the study international, just like introductory course of 6 months of the Ayurveda studies, which for me was fascinating. And we were only 8 students from around the world, and we were studying in the only one that time state-owned Gujarat University, Jamnagar Gujarat University, with these amazing professors and old knowledge of Sanskrit and books and Vedas, and that world just took me in so deeply that I actually wanted to leave everything what I was doing in my life, including my own engagement to get married, and I just wanted to become an Ayurvedic doctor.
Mm.
But that was maybe not a very good time for me because it's true I already promised to get married to someone, so that was not good to break. So I returned back to Uganda and later back to native Lithuania. We got married, and but the knowledge, the seeking of the knowledge never ceased. So as a married woman later, 2007 again, I said, I need to go. So I went to Pune. I went to another Ayurveda establishment called the Shruti Academy, and I acquired a certificate in Ayurvedic spices and cooking and more deeper knowledge of Ayurveda because I found Ayurveda very fascinating science up to now. The knowledge of Ayurveda that is so. Yoga came much later in terms of studying yoga. I went to see that yogi and this yogi, and some of them were not so clear to me. I even went to a few ashrams. We went to the famous Goa to see the beaches and to see environment. Signed in a few ashrams and Ayurvedic clinics and did yoga, did Ayurvedic Panchakarma. So all that. So was very beautiful. So later I came back home. That was back home to Lithuania, and a new Ayurveda um, clinic opened up, the first in the country. So
Oh,
I was very excited about that. I wrote to the owners, congratulating them, like what a great initiative to have an Ayurvedic clinic in Lithuania, and they invited for me to be a director and a consultant there.
I am so eager about your clinic's name in Lithuania.
It was called Shanti, the beautiful name Shanti, Ayurvedic clinic called Shanti.
Wow.
At the moment, they might have rebranded themselves because I don't live in Lithuania now to Ayurvedic Spa because it's kind of a more
Mm,
commercial name.
mm.
But they still exist, and they're still very big and very successful. It's a wife and a husband, Darius and Egle Kauneckai, and they are doing amazing job in promoting Ayurveda in Lithuania. So
Fantastic.
we were pioneers first time that time, and it was amazing. We we introduced the concept to the country, and I became a Ayurvedic consultant, which was such an honor because I mean my knowledge of Ayurveda. I did not study Ayurveda as a doctor. I just studied Ayurveda as an amateur, like and I brought so many books from Ayurveda. Like I brought from India. I brought 5 suitcases of books,
Oh,
and all the classic books and Sushruta Samhita and Charaka Samhita and all the other ones, and I was just very interested. So at some point I felt like I don't even want to work for the administration and to be a director. I'm more interested to be a consultant and a writer. So I became a writer of Ayurveda in the country. I published a lot of articles which were basically picking a topic about Ayurveda and then and maybe scrutinizing would that be about Prakruti versus Vikruti, or would it be about doshas, or would it be about seasons, or about spices, something like
yeah.
more useful for the common man, not to go so much deep into Ayurveda as a science, but more like how do you apply in the current world, the modern world.
Yeah.
So that was very nice for a couple of years. And then our life took me and my husband away to Haiti, 2008 that was. And I couldn't join him in Haiti because it was a very tumultuous times. Seems like they've never ended because even now Haiti is on the radar of the political affairs. So I ended up going to Washington D.C. and waiting for the turmoil to end. And here it was, my friend who said, "You like yoga very much. This week is a yoga week in DC, Washington DC. Why don't you go and look for any studio? There's affordable classes anywhere."
Hmm.
So I just took a metro and I went to a first yoga studio afforded, so it's closest to the station. And here it was a Bikram yoga, hot yoga. Bikram Chowdhury is the founder of this yoga from Calcutta, who immigrated 1973 to America.
Oh.
So I just went to this yoga class, and for me, it threw me out of all the senses. Bikram Chowdhury is a pretty famous yogi, is a worldwide known yogi. He is born in Calcutta and he practiced as a young man in Mumbai, but later he emigrated to United States of America.
So you went
He
to
does have
US to join
studio.
the studio, right?
I just went to join one of his many studios in the world, and that one was in Washington D.C.
Okay.
And the practice they did and they do up to this day is the Hatha Yoga, where he just picked a sequence of 26 postures and 2 asanas and 2 breathing exercises. And he put them in a kind of a logical order, knowing the body anatomy. And it's good for everyone, as Bikram's motto used to be always: "It's never too late, you're never too old, and you're never too sick."
Hmm.
And it can be the same practice applicable even for the same pregnant woman, for a military guy, or for an older or even obese client, a person who is just dealing with some health issues. So I went to the studio, but it was not so straightforward because you have to have your practice for at least 6 months and a recommendation from the studio owner. And that was a very fresh studio. The studio just opened up in Washington D.C. Actually on the street where Martin Luther King was killed, on the H Street in Washington D.C. in the East area. So it was like a very important landmark. Where a lot of African Americans are living, and a very nice and beautiful studio there. So I was just a new person, and I said I want to go learn this science. So I was told that I need to go to the source, and the source is Bikram Chowdhury, and I need to find his teacher training. So I asked them to help me out, and they did. And the teacher training happened to be in Mexico, Acapulco, that time, where he was training. September 2008, he was training 350 yogis to be yoga instructors. I didn't go to become one. I didn't go to become a yoga instructor because, as at the beginning of the show I mentioned, I was looking for healing. And this is the reason why I turned to Ayurveda, I turned to yoga, and up to this day, 25 years later, I'm still looking for healing. We're all looking for healing. We're looking for spirituality. We are looking for the ways of being in this world. And so for me, I just went because I was seeking knowledge, and it was the way this yoga made me feel, the way I saw testimonies of my friends, and the way it was changing our bodies, it was changing our minds. It was like magnificent. I wanted to touch the source, and I wanted to meet the guy and see what it does for me. And I did not even plan to actually teach. I just wanted to learn for myself, actually, so I can apply in my life.
Hmm.
But the training was amazing, was very hard. And I mean, as maybe the listeners, might have heard Bikram Chowdhury's name. As I mentioned before, he's a famous yogi. There's a controversy going around in the world about him and his reputation, which I totally remove myself from that, and I totally disagree with all that movement going against him, even though maybe there are some challenging moments how American, how would they say, legal system has attacked the man, and he had to defend himself, and he did his best. And their movies have been done by him. It's on Netflix, and it's been a lot of yogis might even wanted to disregard him and his name. But for me, I always look at Bikram Chowdhury as an amazing person who managed to create such a big community and such a big group of followers. And he made a methodology. He used
And
a
such a big group of instructors.
very big group of instructors, and it became not only commercially very viable in Northern America, and I think that is where it a little bit became a controversy, because it took off, so it became like an explosion, like of so many studios of called Bikram Yoga Studios, and there are so many instructors, and of course there's a lot of money making for some people, so that, as I said, tainted his name. And at the moment, I know he does the teacher trainings in India or in Thailand. I heard the last time. I think would love to go and meet him. He's 1943. Haven't seen him since 2008. He's born 1943, so he's 80 years old this year. So he's still alive, and God bless his soul. Whatever other people think about him, and let them decide for themselves. So I went to his teacher training, and it was an amazing boot camp with very hard, and some of us failed and some of us succeeded, and 9 weeks later we came out to be yoga instructors. And as I said, for me, I was just experimenting with life.
It was 2008, right? The time you came out as
2008.
an instructor.
Yes, it was 2008. I came out as an instructor. And then I went, and since during the training, we did a lot of, we had lectures, we had practical training, and there was a lot of this kind of instilling into our minds. It would be good to share the knowledge. It would be good to teach. You should really think about your first class. So there was a lot of kind of a pushing us to teach rather than just keep that knowledge. So I thought, like, okay, let me go back to Washington, D.C., to those friends of mine at the studio. The studio is new. They don't have too many teachers. They have vacancies. So I really wanted to, why not to try, since I was given the opportunity. So I stayed at the studio. I decided to stay at the studio since they offered me a little room, a very small studio. And I taught there for 4 years, living at the studio. I abandoned my life I was leading, whatever I was doing in my life in terms of personal life and the career life, because I'm trained as an engineer and a master of finance.
Oh.
So I'm actually professionally, I have a different, professional path in terms of the career, if I want to say that. But I abandoned everything. I was not interested. The only thing made me happy is to teach yoga and do yoga. And I did it. And I remember one time I had a colleague coming from London who used to know me as a working person in a big energy company. And he looked at me at the reception, receiving all my friends and students coming into a class. He was fascinated. He says, I've never seen you so happy, so radiant, like what a nice gift to be so happy at your working place. So that was it, and it was beautiful. Amazing people I met. As I said, it was also a beautiful changing place that time. Washington, D.C., the area which used to be full of African Americans behind the Capitol Hill, it became more and more gentrified with white people mixing with the black people, and then even the yoga classes were like mixed, and it was a nice way of seeing the world kind of changing, and yoga bringing us together like in such a nice light, and the friends I made, and the healing happened there, the testimonies. It was absolutely amazing. Up to now, if I need to go back to Washington, D.C., I can go to these people and say, hi, how are you? And I'm sure I'll have a room to stay and dinner I'll have. And there's a big family there I left behind. So that was beautiful times.
From America, then you been to.
Yeah, then from America, since I'm a European and I would be always going back to my native Lithuania to see my mom, my family, I kind of one time stopped by Belgium, where my friend, who was also at the teacher training in Acapulco, Mexico, was living, a girl from Czech Republic,
Mhm.
was acquired a studio actually from an Indian family in
Mhm.
Antwerp. And she mentioned to me she doesn't have a studio. So at that time, I felt like I had a good time in America, but America is not where I'm from. And to be honest, I'm not really feeling like I would like to put my roots down in America.
Mhm.
I wanted to actually leave the country. I felt like it's my time is over.
Mhm.
So that was a good way of kind of stepping into European plains, and I started teaching there in Antwerp,
Mhm.
Belgium, which was also a very small studio with of a different community. And again, just like coming home, like yoga united us all. That is what this was beautiful. We always traveled a lot. We go to London sometimes. We teach a class, and you go in. We would go to any studio, whether let's say whether it's London or could be even New York, or so many studios I traveled to see and yoga retreats. You just come and you say to each other, yes, I'm a teacher, I'm a Bikram yoga teacher. And we just feel like yet another sister, yet another brother I meet. We just, having gone through the teacher training with Bikram Chowdhury, we had something in common, which is actually something like the knowledge, the hardship we had to go
Mhm.
through, the way we loved the yoga. We were united. So I always had home anywhere I would go, and that felt very good. That felt so amazing. So that was it for some time, and then at some point, I received a call from my old colleagues in London asking me if I am free to take a professional career back. And I had a very big gap without working like for 9 years. But since I was invited to work on a very big project in Kenya,
Mhm.
and I said, okay, let me leave the full time yoga teaching,
Mhm.
and maybe go and train a bit my brain again and do some good work. So I came to Kenya to work on the Lake Turkana wind power project, the biggest wind power uh, uh, project in the world by now,
Wow.
which finally got built. So while when I came here, my first intention was, where is a Bikram yoga studio now? Where is my community? I
Mhm.
went to Nairobi, and the Bikram yoga studio was not opened yet.
Mhm.
It opened in 2012, so I moved in 2011, and I found a different project. It was called Africa Yoga Project,
Mhm.
which was also full of amazing yogis, local yogis, American lady initiative to bring yoga to Nairobi, and she started this project, and it was very successful. It's successful up to this day. And I joined the community, which I really enjoyed. There was a very good yoga, and through that community, yoga was more like a power vinyasa. Baron Batiste, it's their teacher, who even came to Kenya a couple of times to teach Kenyans to become yoga teachers. So it's an amazing project, teaching yoga for people with their disabilities, teaching
Mhm.
yoga for people in prison, teaching yoga for children, footballers, communities, ghettos. Up to now, it's really an amazing project and is ongoing. So for me, I was like happy to get to know yogis, not only the professional, people and commercial people and business people. I really wanted to know different type of people, and then through them, I met my future. I met Karim Nato, who was a studio owner, who became a studio owner of Bikram Yoga. Because for Bikram Yoga studio, you have to go through the yoga training Bikram yoga training, in order to be able to open any yoga studio anywhere in the world to do with Bikram yoga. So that My first daughter was born in September 2012, and the yoga studio opened in September 2012. So I practiced even 5 days before 3 days before I delivered. I was
Oh,
practicing.
wow.
5 days after delivery, I was back in the studio.
Oh,
And I really believe that and I also was working professionally, doing a big project and leading a team. And I had another son, second born. 16 months later, I had a second boy born. And I can truly say that yoga really helped me to continue being very strong physically, very strong mentally, to be able to provide, to be able to work professionally. And I would teach yoga occasionally, but at that time, since I became a new mother, I decided let me just concentrate a little bit on my family rather than full-time teaching. But I continued. Yes, I met a very amazing yoga community in Nairobi. Great, amazing people, lots of good movement here towards yoga in Africa. Great personalities here trying to promote yoga. So it was wonderful. Again, I was back with my family. It's only in a different continent.
mm,
So when the kids grew up a little bit older and I finished my project, I said that I don't want to work anymore in the professional field. I saved up
mm,
enough of capital. I worked for 7 years. That is good enough.
mm,
And while the kids were still small, 5 and 4, we moved to the coast, to the south coast of Kenya, Diani Beach. And the plan with my partner was to open a yoga studio. So we worked hard. We worked hard for about 5 years to just to establish ourselves here. Like how do we even start? How do we look for income? Because how do we pay the school fees? How do we
mm,
live? So everything had to be a bit gradual. But yoga always maintained us hopeful, keeping us spiritually strong. And yeah, slowly we finished the yoga studio, and the yoga studio is here. And at the moment, trying to figure out whether we want to have a yoga retreats here for the visitors, or we want to concentrate more on the residents. At the moment, I've totally kind of rebranded myself as a yoga teacher, and I've become very passionate teaching children yoga. So I started teaching at the international school where my children go, and I also organize a couple of yoga workshops, yoga and art. The kids come and we do like we can maybe draw mandalas. We put beads on it. We do some asanas. We play. We have some lunch. We spend some time together. So that was very successful. Very great for parents. They're happy to see that kind of engagement for children, and very interesting activity for kids. So that made me to be more and more interested in the children yoga. So I'm just now very happy to have 2 classes per week at the international school here on the south coast called the Trade Winds Academy. Teaching from year one, like from 5 years old to 14. And they're beautiful, and the children are beautiful. It's so amazing to teach children. They're like sponges. Their knowledge is
mm,
so pure. So they're so pure, and they are interested. And we always, every class, we have a different concept. Like yoga is disciplined, yoga is science, yoga is breathing, yoga is asanas. And so we kind of pick this topic and we scrutinize. We talk a little bit about it. We hear each other's opinion about it. So I'm kind of slowly trying to, promote this to the young minds. Take some videos. I take some photos for the parents to continue promoting, like so they know what's happening. Because you see the yoga here in Africa, there is some people could be fearful because just due to the lack of knowledge, they might think that yoga is a religion. Yoga is something to do. You have to use a Sanskrit words, and this is a foreign language. And even at the yoga studio in Nairobi, there was a because we have in East Africa, it's a very mixed community. There are a lot of Christians, there are Hindus, and there are Punjabis, and there are of course a lot of Muslims, especially in the southern part of Kenya. So, but everyone lives in peace, and there's no problems at all. But at the same time, everyone still really much promotes and respects their religion or their culture. So, bringing a yoga culture in terms of um, like a religion where some people interpret is not really it's not really received well, and some people might not even go to yoga just because we say asanas in Sanskrit names. So I remember our studio owner Karim was always used to say, just say in English all these asanas. Don't say Paschimottanasana, Dandayamana Paschimottanasana. Just don't say that. Just say standing, separate leg stretching. That will be much better.
Oh, you don't give any Sanskrit name to the asana, right? You use generic
I mean,
English
in
words.
that studio, in that community, it's just to sensitize people and
Okay,
to make
okay.
sure that they are like not get adverse reaction.
Hmm, hmm,
So,
hmm.
and that is why I was saying that even with the children, because even in that school we have Muslims and we have Christians and we have Jews. I'm also trying like very strongly promote yoga as it's nothing to do with it's a movement about health. It's about wellness. It's about mind and it's about body.
I have a question,
Mhm.
Aurelia.
Okay.
Yoga came from India, right? So yoga is well described in Sanskrit. So now tell me, is yoga really a part of Sanatana Dharma or it is a part of Hinduism? Is yoga anyway related to the religion?
I would say, I mean, I don't know how it was 5,000 years ago, how exactly we do hear the stories about the fortunate people in India who might be were Brahmins or like might be from the levels of the society who could afford to have a yoga instructor or have time to do yoga were fortunate enough to touch the knowledge. But at this point of time where we are in a real and modern world, yoga has become it's it's um, it's not a religion to be able to restrict yourself to think as a religion is more like it's a science. It's a science of or it's a science is a knowledge of how to use your different yoga techniques, asanas, breathing techniques in order to promote different body parts, like promoting by, for instance, make sure that your lower back is not hurting. It's your hamstrings are stretched or your kidneys, getting out the toxins. I mean, that is how we can tell the modern man that, yoga is very good for your health. But at the same time, of course, yoga has a big spiritual part. It has, even through breathing, if you really get into the breathing techniques and you go deep and long, you can really get feel like blissful and feel enlightened and feel connected. And the meditation, I mean, meditation is just like a prayer. I mean, whether I
Prayer,
was.
but not attach it to any particular god or religion, right?
No,
It is
no, not
spiritual.
to any particular god. And we don't have to, as I said, I wanted to say I am born in a Catholic country. I mean, I'm baptized as a Catholic, and I don't deny my religion. I mean, I baptize my children as Catholic too, and that is our culture. I believe this is a culture which I need to respect. But at the same time, I'm also very fascinated about if we talk about religion, Hinduism. There's so many beautiful ways of praising the Lord and connecting to nature. I even called my son. My son's second name is remembering Lord Shiva. My son's second name it's after his grandfather, who happens to be called Shiveka. So I thought that his name is beautiful. So I said to the father, "Can we use his name?" Even though culturally in Kenya you don't use a grandfather's name on the grandchild, it's a different combination of names. But we called him Shiveka because I felt like, the Lord of Destruction and Creation, and it's a powerful name. And his first name, by the way, Ayus, which is like again science of life. So we are like we live in such a modern world, and we should not deny or get fearful of like of the religion of I think there's so many beautiful Muslim tales and the Muslim way of fasting, Ramadan. There's so many good ways about their lifestyle, and there's a Jewish lifestyle which is also so many good values brings to the world. So just be open, and I think that is what I'm trying. I've never even have brought a yoga as a religion, or like brought any gods to the children, just not to confuse them at this point of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Not even my children. I mean, I'm talking about the children, like my student children. Yes, because yeah, the world is a little bit complicated these days, and we have such unfortunate mix of hate and race and religion.
What I understand after listening to you is yoga was always a big portion of your life. I'm feeling so proud that something which born in India is so popular and very well accepted throughout the world. So tell me, Aurelija, now you have trained people from various countries right now. If I ask you to share your experiences training people from various countries, like how was your experience? Like how did Americans accepted yoga? How people from Africa have taken yoga into account, and how people from Europe have considered yoga?
Okay, that is a very good question, actually. It's very interesting, actually, how it is true they do perceive it very different, and it's also to do with the lifestyle of people and where they find themselves, where they are in terms of like even like a spirituality, acceptance to religion, and just a lifestyle, like kind of a capitalism, materialism, and there's all these isms. They do affect the common man on a daily basis. And then, for instance, in Northern America or in the Western Europe, yoga is very much perceived, especially if you go to any like studio, like and it's very popular. And it's such a big industry of. And so commercialized, and there's so many people making a lot of money, and I'm not saying in a bad way, but it's truly very much commercialized. And Americans do look at yoga, definitely not as a spiritual practice, but then very much as a physical practice. For them, for a lot of people, yoga is just a physical exercise where you really sweat, and you have your cardio, you have your stretch, and it's just a preparation maybe for doing sports, or maintaining your maybe sport career, or like a dancers do yoga, acrobats, circus. So it's very much used and very much known and acknowledged that way to be a physical practice. And this is where they stop. And most of the people, and this is where they actually don't want to go any deeper. And just because, as I said, the world has become a bit complicated in terms of like, religion and what. So let's just separate and just let's do the physical. And thanks God is happening, because, of course, maybe it's not a full set of, yoga experience, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how deep you go. The matter is somewhere you have to start. And I did like what Bikram Chowdhury used to say. So he used to, I mean, he's interesting how he used to kind of make us laugh. And he says, so I have people coming to my class and asking, so do you meditate? And he says, I look at him and he's like, yes, we do meditate, but like, are you ready to meditate? Are you ready to sit here in a still position for 1 hour and then look in the front or look at a candle? Are you sure that your hips are not going to be hurting?
mm,
Are you sure that your back is not going to be hurting?
mm,
And are you going to be able to do that? So he says, I don't think so. So you better get yourself physically prepared. And
mm,
once you go to be physically prepared, your mind will be so calm that you will be actually able to sit even for 2 hours to look at that candle and then meditate. So that one, I understood that concept, and it was interesting to look from that perspective because it's definitely not what you hear and what you learn in India.
mm,
But then, and having moving a bit closer to Europe, for instance, in let's say in Lithuania, my native Lithuania, I have a lot of yoga friends. Their attitude to yoga is very different. Lithuania, we are. By the way, Lithuania, I mean, if I talk about my own country, Lithuanian language, which is an Indo-European language group, it's the only living language which is closest to Sanskrit. Up to this
oh,
day, the Sanskrit
I
scholars
didn't know about this, Aurelia.
yeah, up to this day, the Sanskrit scholars travel to Vilnius University to study, let's say, linguistics, passionate people, to kind of learn about the development of the world, how languages have traveled. There are some passionate people who have established the websites, comparing the Sanskrit words with the Lithuanian words, like, let's say,
Oh,
Vayu, which is wind, or Vėjas in Lithuanian,
oh,
Agni, which is fire, or Ugnis in
oh,
Lithuanian. So, having said that, we also the last country in the whole Europe accepted Christianity in 1387. So we were the pagans up to then, like however you want to call pagans, but we were just like Hindus, praying to the Lord of fire and to the Lord of thunder and to the Lord of
mm,
sun. So we were like and we, of course, commercially and because of the trade, we had to accept the Christianity, and now we're claiming to be Catholics. But that paganism, that kind of the rituals of respecting harvest, respecting nature, respecting earth, are still a part of our daily routine now, as it is actually in India compared to the Western
mm,
Europe or Northern America, I would say.
mm,
So our yogis in Eastern Europe are very different from the yogis in Northern America. They are the biggest school there is Shivananda Yoga, where they fully turn against meat and against bad habits like smoking, drinking.
mm,
They like a lot of chanting. They really go, not only they do very strong physical practice, but at the same time they also do spiritual practice. They raise early, they meditate, they go chanting, they go on a pilgrimage, they go once per year to India. My friend,
mm,
who's a mother free, mature yogi, has done so many of those. So it's a very different way. And they train in Russia too, by the way. Russia has a big Shivananda school, kind of the whole Eastern European area, or like, closer to Western Europe, those borders. So Shivananda. So that's a very, very different way. They sometimes, I feel like, maybe they could be a bit too judgmental because we don't have to discount the people who eat meat and
mm,
who might have a bad habit here and there. Just write them off and say like, now you're not important and you actually never gonna be yogi,
yes.
because that might be just a little bit limiting. Even myself, when I was younger, I was like, I can never become a yoga teacher. How? I cannot stand on a head.
Mm,
And for me, if you don't stand on a head, in my head, it was like ultimate no to become a yoga teacher.
mm,
I did not stand on a head for another 8 years after becoming yoga teacher, until some friend of mine told me, you are ready. You've trained for a long time. I think you can do it. I'm like, no, 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 no. That is a big fear to go upside down. They're like, no, no, let me help you. And
mm,
yeah, funny enough, I was there on a head. But you see, like, this is not important to stand on a head in life, or like to claim yourself like I'm a vegetarian and this is why I'm so great.
mm, mm.
I mean, these are the labels. I think we need to go deeper and to kind of be more accepting. Acceptance is the key in the current world.
Yes. Some time ago, you mentioned that you have also trained people with disabilities for yoga, right? So, I want to know a few details about it. How helpful is yoga for the people who are disabled?
Yes, I mean, people with disabilities for sure. I mean, in Washington D.C., I mean, it's a great country, America, for promoting people with disabilities in general, compared to now in Europe. So we also have a good way of living. A person with disabilities can live a much easier life. But in America, of course, it's been promoted for many years, and you do see disabled people, and they do come to yoga. I had a lady without an arm. I had a man who was actually not really good with walking with legs, but he was sitting and doing floor series. Um, Great. I mean, the lady, to be honest, I mean, I remember that lady without an arm, one arm only, and another one is she I don't know how she lost the arm. I didn't ask, but she just was behaving just exactly the same. Like we would treat her just exactly the same way, like like you would say, treat the everyone is the same. Like you lift what you have. Like you lift half of your arm. You extend half of your arm. Like because we still have the same body organs. So hearing, I mean, of course, I mean, with visual, I haven't trained, but actually, no, it's not true. I did have a class of the blind people coming. Now you reminded me. Thanks for reminding me. We had a class of the 20 kids with the blind disability coming into the Bikram Yoga Studio in Washington, D.C. And I was the one asked to teach the class. You reminded me.
Wow.
So it was a little bit shaking for me because you see with the Bikram series, one of the things you do, you have a mirror in the front of you, and you look at that mirror. And the mirror not only supposed to help you not to be distracted and kind of looking around anywhere else, but just look in your
Now,
eyes.
this is going to be a big challenge for you.
Yeah, so I thought like how exactly I'm going to be teaching those young people. They were from some college. The college was not too far from where we were. But I mean, the studio owner said, just relax. We just do exactly as we normally do. There's nothing different. And normally we teach with the dialogue. We call it a dialogue, which is more like a monologue. We taught like a mantra. There is a book which we had to learn word by word. And our test used to be every posture we scrutinize word by word, like, let's say Ardha Chandrasana. So we just say arms over your head sideways, interlock your fingers, release your index fingers, thumbs crossed, keep a nice tight grip, don't lose your grip, hands and palms glued up to the entire posture. So you give a command to the body parts. And then everyone's supposed to get tuned in with that voice of the teacher and just listen to the command. We call it a dialogue because Bikram said there's a dialogue between your voice and the body of the person. So it's a dialogue between the two. It's the person's body and you having a dialogue. So it's not a monologue. He used to call it a Bikram
It's
dialogue.
like
So I just
you
taught
talking
him.
to yourself.
Yeah, you're basically talking all the class, 90 minutes, you're talking, and you just keep talking. And some people hate you for that, and they just like, you just like stop talking, I don't want to hear you anymore. And if they don't want to hear you anymore, then they have to tune out. They have to find a way that peace somehow inside their mind, like they don't even hear you anymore, but still keep doing what you're hearing. So I mean, it was wonderful. These college students were like, they had a good time. They were strong boys and a couple of girls. They had it was you reminded me. I forgot about it. Thanks for that.
Welcome.
Elizabeth, the studio owner, was very happy. And that time I had to leave because I was also going back to Lithuania. So I don't know anymore how much that relationship between the college and the studio owner continued. But yeah, it was successful. They just had exactly the same benefit, just like anyone else, and the dialogue helped.
How did you show them the asana? Because for a normal person, you do it and they watch you and they do it. But for a blind
Aha.
person, how do you teach them?
Yes. And that is where we go back because now I'm specifically to talking about Bikram yoga.
Mm.
We don't have to show in Bikram yoga. We do not show to the students postures. We assume that okay, we don't have to even assume. There's not all. There are a lot of times. Sometimes the whole class can be new people. And they've never done that yoga.
Mm.
Sometimes can be one student out of 20 who hasn't done Bikram yoga, but the rest have done. So sometimes that person might be looks at the neighbor here and there.
Mm.
But the point is, and this is what Bikram Chowdhury has been always emphasizing,
Mm.
and he said, I have written this dialogue in order for you to speak to a person's body. And through your words, and the way I've written is not that I don't know English, because if you like, yeah, his dialogue is like the sentences, they are not put in a way that like, I go to eat. And
Okay.
he puts in a way that he kind of puts command at he names the body parts for arms over your head, how, and
Oh.
then what you do. So kind of he studied people's bodies, and he thought that the best way, rather than showing to them, is to tell them so they hear and they kind of tune in with their body parts, and then they do at the end, and the end is a command: push, like a push, or like stretch. So
Wow.
but you already put everything, arms or head sideways, you
Mm.
interlocked your fingers, you released your index finger, and you need to hear that. And so for Bikram yoga in particular, with that dialogue, is perfect for blind people
Mm.
because they don't have to see.
What surprises me is, Aurelia, in America alone, approximately 36 million people are practicing yoga each day. Very unfortunately, though the yoga born in India, yoga is not widely adapted or practiced in India. I really
Hmm.
don't understand why.
Yes, actually, it's a very good observation and a very nice research you have done. As I said, I went the first time I went to 2003 to India, to Gujarat, and we were living in Jamnagar studying Ayurveda. We young girls, that time we were like a few boys, was Santok was from London, Bura was from Turkey, but there were girls like in our international group. And we as girls, we wanted to do yoga. We are like and there was a yoga department, so we went to the yoga department of Gujarat University, and we said, do you guys do yoga, like the practice, the asanas?
Mm.
Yes, we met the professor, and the professor was ready to talk about any asana, and there are a lot of pictures and research and books, but there was no instructor like the way we and we are talking 2003, 20 years ago. There's no instructor, like, so how, but we want to do yoga, like, we did not come. Now we cannot study yoga because now we are studying Ayurveda, not a yoga Veda. So we
Mm.
cannot sign up for your department. We already signed up for another department at the Gujarat University. But is there any yoga teacher we can learn with?
Mm.
Just to do a daily practice. Okay, so the professor found for us this kind of a young person who also for us was very funny because he kind of dressed up in orange, the color of enlightened people,
Yes,
and
yes.
he showed up in the front of us, and he wanted us to call him Jaya Guru, and we were looking at him with the crossed eyes. I was like, what are you doing here? And he knew some yoga asanas, and he kind of stretched here and stretched there.
Mm.
Later in the evening, he asked us, as a young girls, like, would you like to go out to Jamnagar town? Then, he comes back in the evening without this orange robe and
Mm.
with the the bike, and takes me and a friend around. So we are like, what kind of yoga teacher are you? Like, are you really a yoga teacher? Because we thought about a yoga teacher being like more like from the Western world, someone who just knows the asanas, who does like a 1.5 hours class, and but you see, it's true that in India, like to find like this kind of the same commercial movement, the way it is in Western world. I haven't seen it myself. I do know, but I do know that there are commercial studios now. Let's say even Mumbai has a Bikram Yoga, where a lot of Bollywood beauties go there because Bikram Yoga is very good for the
mm,
body,
mm,
losing weight and
mm,
stuff. But there are a lot of yoga studios now, maybe in big cities.
mm.
In a big cities where the life is very fast and is clicking very fast, and a lot of digital media, and people kind of need to switch off, and yoga really helps them.
Mm.
But um, but it is true, is not very widely commercialized the way it is. And I think why we would say maybe because at the end of the day, it's still an average, probably an Indian person would look at yoga Veda as still part of the Vedas. And there's so many Vedas. And maybe even the fact that it is a deep knowledge. And and to kind of look at the knowledge just from the surface point of view, just like from the top, and see, touch a little bit. Maybe culturally, people feel like if it is a yoga Veda, then we have to study, then we have to chant, then we have to pray, and even lead a healthy lifestyle. And that maybe culturally makes people not to go there. They don't want to do commercial way. They don't feel like it can be commercialized. So that is my interpretation.
What really depresses me is, Aurelia, in India, people are running behind aerobics, people are running behind Zumba, people are running behind salsa, samba, blah, blah, whatever. But
Hmm.
yoga is still ignored.
Western influence. That is what we are going back to the same, right? The influence of the virtual commercialism,
Yeah.
capitalism, and all the isms to do with the, me, individuality. I mean, that is what current culture, the globalization has brought to us there.
I heard over 90% of the medical practitioners, doctors, senior
Yes,
doctors, experts, medical scientists, they all advise yoga throughout the world. Throughout the world.
very true.
So, when yoga got such an beauty, when yoga got such an power to heal, so then I
Very much.
feel every one of us should integrate, or should get yoga into our lives, right? So now tell me five most essential asanas which will make you fit for sure.
Five is, I guess, or maybe I tell you 26, like the ones I was taught as the Bikram taught us.
Top five.
I mean, maybe if we talk about five, then maybe we need to think maybe about five different, like, how can I say? What is very important in a yoga class is one thing is to do some kind of a breathing, whatever breathing you go do before the practice and after the practice. I mean, if you're talking about five, just breathing, like do some kind of a breathing. Then, very important to do something about the spine, rotation of the spine. So to the left, to the right, back, forward. Again, there are many pushes we do, but something about moving the rigid spine. Then again, like a third, we can talk about the hips, the joints, the hips, knees, the standing, like the one the what keeps our body up. So something to exercise the legs, like the joints, the hips, the knees, and the ankles.
Hmm.
Then very important to do the stretching. And the stretching, again, there's so many stretching postures, but like let's say would be the trikonasana, like a triangle pose, pyramid pose. There's so many, again, there's so many variations because again we have so many yoga schools.
Hmm.
If we talk ashwaga, ashtanga, then it's gonna be, they do that way. Bikram does this way, Then we have another yogi, Varun Baptiste does this way. So no, without any competition, there are different trikonasanas, but again stretching. Very important. And then spine twisting. Every class has to finish with the spine twisting because, that is like, our spine, the tree of life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very important to kind of find again which there are also very many spine twisting exercises, sitting, standing, what.
Hmm.
So those, the kind of, if look at that one, and if you really look at any yoga practice, again, I mentioned hatha yoga, ashtanga yoga, vinyasa yoga, this yoga, that yoga, they still go back to those basics. They
Hmm.
still do some kind of a breathing. They still do some kind of a spine work.
Hmm.
They do stretching. They do spine twisting again at the end to, and also strengthening. There's some muscles which you can also get a cardio. Very important in a yoga class. Very important in a yoga class is to sweat.
Hmm.
Whereas you sweat working hard, you actually expel the toxins and you prepare the body now, for the kind of a new cycle.
Hmm.
So and as you kind of you go to that yoga school and you go to that another yoga school, you realize that one way or another one, they all very similar. They still do the same thing from a different angle.
So, my dear listeners, yoga is a very important thing. I would say must to have thing in everyone's life, because yoga helps you conquer depression. Yoga helps you in boosting your confidence. Yoga will improve your sex life. Yoga will ease your delivery while you are pregnant. Yoga has got hundreds of benefits. I strongly believe in yoga and I say just go practice yoga. So Aurelia has a beautiful studio, world class studio in Diani, Kenya. The details are given in the description. You can go to Kenya Diani, join the course, get the course done, and I'm sure you will just love the new life what you're going to experience once you are done with the yoga classes. So Aurelia, now we have come to the stage where I have this question for all my guests, and you do not have any option to say no.
Okay.
You have to answer this.
Okay.
Aurelia, if you have all the superpowers in your hands to change
Mm.
something in this world, what that would be?
Oh, that would be so amazing if we can say with yoga. I would say that would be so amazing to see every one of us rising in the morning, having a glass of the lukewarm water with lemon. And since we live closer by the beach, and we meet for the sunrise, all of us on the beach, and we just do yoga. That would be so amazing. We would be so empowered, so friendly, so happy, and going back to our professions after the class. And that one I would love to see. If I had superpowers, I would love to see the beach full of the residents here in the South Coast doing yoga and
Wow,
then see how that changes our lives.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Aurelia, for giving me
Thank you
an
so much.
opportunity to bring you onto my show, Suman versus Human.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about my passion and about exchange this important information. God bless you for everything you do and namaste.
Namaste. Hello, friends. Please like and rate my show so that it gets recommended to more and more people on the internet. Also, you can follow Suman versus Human on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/Suman versus Human.